This is Include, a Microsoft Partner Network podcast exploring our shared experiences in technology and business.
The power of technology to save lives, but also make lives better, make us more efficient, all these things is, at the end of the day, what fuels me.
In this podcast, we're having honest conversations on how to build more inclusive cultures. Welcome back to the Microsoft Partner Network podcast. Today, we're in the studio with Melissa Mulholland, who is part of the One Commercial Partner Organization. She leads partner business development and has had quite a nice journey here at Microsoft. Melissa, please introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about your journey here.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Rachel. It's exciting to be on this podcast today with all of you. So my name is Melissa Mulholland. I'm in the One Commercial Partner Organization. I drive business development with partners, and that's built upon my experience with Microsoft over the past 10 years. I've had a depth of experience in finance, sales, marketing, operations, which has led me to my most exciting role, which is working with all of you partners out there globally to build out your business models.
And you did, what did you did at Intel for a little bit? You were on the financial side. So Melissa really does understand finances and all aspects of the business as well as sales too.
Yeah, that's right. I worked at Intel for 2 years, helping them build out their, at the time, green strategy for renewable energy. It was a fantastic experience, which led me to staying in the tech ecosystem. And so I came to Microsoft from there afterwards and have been here ever since.
So you've been part of the partner world probably in the last year or so. For those that were familiar with Jen Seeger, many of our listeners do. Melissa has reinvented what Jen Seeger was doing and working on business development for our partners in this crazy world of transformation. What are you thinking about partners? Or what excites you about this ecosystem?
Partners for me are critical to Microsoft's success in the cloud. I'm extremely passionate about this space. And it really stems from my own personal experience for those that may be familiar, I have a son who was a medical miracle. And I was really touched by living through the hospital ecosystem or industry and ecosystem of understanding the lack of technology that many of our customers aren't using today. And it dawned on me that for Microsoft to be able to realize its mission and to drive real, I would say, life-changing impact in people's lives, it has to be done through partners. You enable us to drive our success, but mutually together. So for me, partners, I've been in this space for the past 5 years, from the OEM business, working on the device side, now to the cloud business, from working with small SMB partners to now globally across the world, all partners across the size. You're critical to our success.
Tell us that story about your medical miracle.
My medical miracle, Connor. So 3 years ago, we found out that my son would not survive outside of the womb without intervention. And we were fortunate enough to have met a doctor who discovered this. And in most cases, it's so rare that by the time you discover it, it's too late. And so we intervened. And then post-birth, and he was delivered early, but post-birth, we lived in the hospital system for essentially 2 years. And now I'm thrilled to say my son is thriving and doing really well. But it's been a really long journey. And it's really at the end of the core, I look back, technology is what saved my son's life. And so the power of technology to save lives, but also make lives better, make us more efficient, all these things is, at the end of the day, what fuels me.
So it was a partner that you just that kind of discovered. Can you talk a little bit about that? I think it's a cool story that I want people to know about because it's through your example, it helps our partners understand what can be possible.
Yeah, the power of technology, every day it keeps changing. So in this particular circumstance, I was preparing for my Inspire presentation, or what those may be familiar with what was WPC. And I came across a partner who has developed, with an IoT partner, they've developed a significant amount of technology within IoT devices. So for those that watch the campaign, the U.S. elections, can't believe nobody hasn't at this stage, the technology that CNN use is actually harnessed through their magic touchboards, is harnessed through this company. And so when we ended up meeting, they started telling me about this new service in AI, artificial intelligence, called cognitive vision, which enables the computer essentially to recognize objects. So that could be a picture of a bird, and it could be a bluebird, and it would recognize what that bluebird is. And then through machine learning, it's able to do predictive analytics to say that with 100% guarantee, it's a blue jay. And so in this specific example, I said, what about we take the picture of my son's ultrasound, since it was such a rare disease and most boys don't actually they're not able to survive. What if we take that picture and teach through cognitive vision and AI, teach it to learn and recognize the object? By doing so, we're actually able to predict up to 100% accuracy that the condition is real. And the power of that for me is if you're living in a remote part of the world and may not have access to an advanced medical doctor like I had the privilege of doing, you can be able to run this virtually for pennies, cents on the dollar. And so with that partner, we developed this technology, which is all housed in Azure. We developed the proof of concept that we like to call it, and are now looking to land this with customers.
And so when you ran the picture with your miracle baby, it recognized it pretty much immediately what the disease was?
Yes, in literally less than a second. So it takes up to 50 images in cognitive vision in Azure to recognize what the object is. So you teach it. And in this case, it only took 20 images, which is outstanding.
And you didn't have that when you were going through the process.
Yeah, this technology didn't exist. And so if I look back, and this is only 6 months on the market, and my son's now just turning 3 next month. And I look back and I think, wow, so many lives can be saved because you can intervene. You can use this in many other ways. And right now we're actually looking to see if we could take this technology and predict breast cancer, for example. So you imagine taking just one story of my son, which is a rare disease affecting 8,000 boys globally, to now expanding that into the realms of breast cancer research.
That's so cool. So I can see why you are excited to be part of the partner ecosystem. It kind of hits home for you and the potential. Talk a little bit about what you've been working on. What have you been working on? Where's the future going for our partners?
That's a great question. So for me, I'm really passionate taking that personal example and seeing the need of what our customers have in the ecosystem. There's a pivot that I say is partner opportunity to start harnessing a path towards industry is really critical. It will enable you as a partner to resonate with your customers in a way that they can't today. So I'll take an example. My family business, they're an accounting practice. And every day I feel like I'm dealing with objections from my mother-in-law on my data is not safe in the cloud. How do I store it? All this, that, and the other. But the reality is it's safer in the cloud than sitting on-premise. And the efficiency of her being able to use that data could really enable their business to grow. But she oftentimes doesn't understand that value proposition because the partner that she's working with just standardizes it. So the partner opportunity, imagine if there was a partner that dove on financial services and around accounting practice that really resonated with that customer, with my mother-in-law, that could drive so much more relevancy in the market and also differentiate that partner. So there's a couple different things I'm working on to answer your question. The first is we developed a set of content called the Practice Development Playbooks, and we have them across Azure, and we just launched at Inspire Security, which I'm pleased to say is massively popular with our partners. And that's really going deep into how partners can build a practice in the cloud. historically, if those that were familiar with my predecessor, Jen Seeger, she did a phenomenal job of getting partners to understand how they could be financially successful. And that was step one. But now where we need to take it to the next level of how do you actually build a successful business from what resources do you need to hire? How do you define your strategy? How do you land your go-to-market? And so we're developing content to help you get there faster. And we're basing that off of partner, I would say, best practices. So what I like to say is we need to sometimes take the Microsoft out of our content and really put it in the voice of partners. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure it resonates with you. And my job is to help you grow your businesses.
We'll provide a link to all of these wonderful playbooks, but they have been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times and are really, really beneficial. So lots of great work coming from you, Melissa.
I'm excited because I'm going to be launching AI content this year.
Ooh.
So going deep into AI by industry, as well as Azure migration. So actually, how do you migrate from on-premise into Azure? So lots more coming. So please stay tuned and we'll make sure to share that out with you.
Yeah. You're clearly a woman in tech and you're a younger woman in tech as well. Talk a little bit about some of the experiences that you've had as a woman in this ecosystem, whether it's with partners or at conferences. What are some of the challenges or experiences that you faced?
It's a great question. So I'm extremely honored to have a platform and a voice. Working for a company like Microsoft has enabled me to get there, but I would say it hasn't been an easy road. To your point around what you mentioned, I often get the point around, how old are you? Do you really have enough experience? And so oftentimes when I present, for those that haven't met me, I tend to be, I'm small in stature. And so people think that I'm fresh out of college. Little do they know that I've got 12 plus years of experience in working in technology. And my depth of background is across the whole business side. And so I often get, I would say, hesitancy from either being, not knowledgeable enough. And so I've found that I've actually changed my tone and approach and how to convince people that I'm knowledgeable and that I've got a seat at the table for the right reasons. And in some retrospect, I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to always push my way to why I'm here. I don't feel like I should have to convince you of why I'm speaking with you today. But oftentimes those objections come through loud and clear. Last year, I vividly recall standing in a presentation of 300 partners. I was the only woman in the room. So we still have a long ways to go with, I would say, changing the realm of diversity in the workplace. But I am starting to see that change come through. And that's not just from a age or gender, but race, experiences as well. So diversity can mean a lot of different things. It's a topic I'm clearly passionate about, but it's been a long journey, but I would say that it's enabled me to be stronger and also think about how I can empower others that may be in a similar situation as me.
Have you seen change occurring when it comes to, I love what you said, diversity comes in all shapes and forms.
Yes.
It's age diversity, it's race diversity, it's experience diversity. We talk about millennials a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen change, and why do you think you're seeing change? What have you been seeing that's been helping propel more diverse and inclusive workforce?
I'm certainly starting to see more change in terms of how people are hiring their resources. But do I think we've gotten there? No. I think we've got a long ways to go. And so I would encourage, partners to really think about their employees and their talent and look at those around them to see, are there people that are really talented in your organization that could be trained to do a different role? And how can you build that within? So I've certainly seen the change emerge. From a Microsoft standpoint, I'm seeing that occur in our workplace as we're bringing in talent and we're fostering it across the board. But I would say even just putting myself in this role where I'm a very public-facing image working with partner CEOs around the world, I can feel that change, but I think we're just on the beginning phases of it.
what are some things that businesses can start to think about when it comes to hiring the right talent, or culturally internally in their businesses creating a more inclusive place?
It's a great question. I think I'm continuously learning this as I go as well, but I think actually to say this last week, I had a fantastic conversation with a colleague, who was sharing with me his perspective of being a Black gay male in the workplace, and how the you could say the aversion or diversity that he has to go through in working with people. And I became that much smarter. And so I use that example where 2 weeks ago, I would never have known the things I did about that individual. So I think learning, continuously always listening and learning and understanding where somebody else may be, what makes them who they are and where do they come from, I think is really important. Especially if you're running an organization, you need to really understand the dimension of who your employees are comprised of. Because as a leader, you can then start to build your culture around that. And diversity, I would say, comes in all shapes and sizes. So oftentimes, if there's somebody that's older in the workplace that's a male, sometimes we, younger millennial people may say, oh, that person's too old, they're too stuck in their ways. And so it goes on both sides of the equations, and being self-aware and continuously checking in with yourself, and then listening. I think listening and learning are absolutely critical. Never, ever expect yourself to be an expert across the board or understand where somebody else is coming from without learning.
Absolutely. And in Satya Nadella's new book, Hit Refresh, some great articles out there, Fast Company right now, but his whole mantra is about being a learn it all.
Yeah.
And that comes true not just in your work and having to learn artificial intelligence or security and all these kind of trends in industry happenings, but it also comes in your inner being and your mind and how you treat people. So I think that's super relevant. One thing that we've talked about also a lot is how important it is to have support from others. If you're a small business, the leaders really supporting the growth of women and those of diverse backgrounds, going out of your way to do that. Have you had in your journey, resources or mentors that have helped you get to where you are? How did you do that?
It's a great point. So there's two things I'll say on that point, both from my experience at Intel and at Microsoft. The first is having this openness to any idea that comes along the way. So more recently, my story that I shared with you at the beginning of this podcast with my son, I actually ended up sharing that story with Satya, and he took it and overnight changed his entire speech for his presentation at our internal Microsoft conference. And it touched him personally, and he was very open to it. So I think, one, having leadership, strong leadership that will take creative ideas from anywhere in the company is really important. So I think from a leadership standpoint, I've had that. At Intel, I had the opportunity of being a brand new college hire fresh out of the gate, where I saw an opportunity to take recycled chips that Intel produces and turn them into solar panels. And they were very open to that idea coming through from just even a 21-year-old. And so having people sponsor me throughout my career journey has been, I'd say, a key factor of my success. It's given me confidence. It's enabled me to think outside the box in ways that I don't think I would have ever had. If somebody had stifled me from the get-go, I probably wouldn't be here today. So there's that one aspect. The second one, which is really important, is mentorship. Even if you're the highest level of a CEO in your organization, having mentorship is absolutely critical to your success. You can never say you're an expert across all these things. We can always be better. So securing yourself with a really strong mentor who can help give you ideas and think in different ways is important. I've got the privilege right now of having a phenomenal management system that they support me, they have my back, but they also push me to grow. And that has been a huge factor of my success, especially in this recent year.
Have you had men support and mentors?
Yes. And so I would say it's an interesting question you bring up, because actually less on the female side, more on the male side. Those that see talent in me and want to invest in my growth have been really helpful in that. And also, being a woman in technology in a leadership role, having somebody to help keep me honest and help me grow is absolutely been fundamental. The other thing I'll just quickly add into that is Gabriella Schuster is amazing at this. She is really good about always helping others have a seat at the table. And is a partner in your business model, I think it's important that you always try to foster that type of culture, that people can feel like their ideas are going to be valued. And that then helps propel growth. When your people, because they're by far number one talent, and when your people feel confident and they feel like their ideas are going to be heard, that helps tremendously.
How do you do that? How do you create that kind of culture? What have you seen that Gabriella does well, for instance?
Lead by example. I think if you really believe in what your core principles are, follow through. Like, don't say something and then don't walk the talk. So follow through on what you really commit to. Make it simple. I'd say Satya, what he has done I've been at Microsoft 10 years now, and when I look across how much the culture has changed in just 3 years alone across a massive company our size, I felt it. It really comes down from the top. And so dispelling down what your company is, what your beliefs are, that you're passionate about, following them through, making sure that your leadership team and your direct reports also exemplify those characteristics, and then highlight and showcase the ideas coming from the bottom all the way up to the top. It's important to recognize those that are contributing to your success, not just your management chain. That's a very important concept that I often see go the other way, where leaders will just only highlight their leadership team and not necessarily the people that are, at the end of the day, doing a lot of the work.
That's great advice. So I think what we're talking here about is the huge benefits of having different opinions in the workplace. The numbers, there's tons of research that show when you have a more diverse group that you can have 30%, 10, whatever percent higher return in terms of innovation, ROI, etc. Where do you see the tech industry going in this way? There's a lot of stuff in the news, and we are a big company. We are one of these tech companies. What do you think is going to happen with our partners that are looking at this too, and they're looking at us and the big players in the tech industry, and they're also seeing the need for a more diversity and inclusion, right? This term at this point. Where do you see it going? What do you think partners can start to do now to become better leaders in the tech industry?
Oh, that's a great one. So I think I would say don't be stifled by your current business model or your current existence of who is made up of your teams today. If you have dreams to do something bigger and bolder, then put that mark out there and then understand what are the people and the talent that you need to develop that. And then you can start to build out your business plan in order to get there. One partner that comes to mind it's a great story that I love to share, if you don't mind if I share. It's a partner out of the UK called Red Pixie. They had a very personal story of a friend who died because they took the wrong medicine. And what they decided to do is actually reshape their company to figure out how can we solve these types of events from occurring. And they looked across their business model and said, okay, we're going to go develop an IoT device, which is not something they had ever done before. So they took a leap of faith in going through an emerging technology that they knew was going to be cutting edge. But they said, we've only got a few people in our organization, but we're going to do it anyway. They hired a technical architect with a medical background. So they hired somebody with that experience who wasn't necessarily a doctor, but had worked their entire life in the medical background, so had that depth of knowledge. And then they combined it with their own capabilities to actually build out these IoT wearable devices, which I think is a really great story. So, and I use them as an example because they aren't large. Yes, they've got big enterprise-sized customers, but they're not a large company. So you can make those big, bold decisions. And so I see where technology is heading, and I often see the other side of it where partners are hesitant to innovate because maybe they've been really successful doing Office 365, for example, been really successful in this area, and they're happy. But the reality is you need to continuously evolve and understand. I think my advice would be really define out where you want to take your business. Then, importantly, you need to decide how are you going to get there with your people. It's not just through technology. It's through having a diverse group of experiences, expertise, and that comes in all forms of, like we were talking about earlier, not just age experience, but wealth of ideas that could be coming fresh out of school. There's many examples of partners that we've come across who have said, we want new ideas coming in from the workforce, and we know that we're going to invest in some cases in millennial headcount in order to do that. So there's different ways that you can think about fostering that type of diversity, but I would say don't be, how do I say this? Just be smart about your resources and look at your own talent first. See if you can invest in your own talent, and then look externally as well. But really try to understand what the culture that you want to shape matched with where you want to take your business, and combined, that can be a key to success.
That is awesome advice, Melissa. It really is. So what you're saying is that we talk so much about digital transformation, and okay, you want to do an IoT business or all these things, right? Transform your business. To do that, you actually have to transform your culture. Yes. And to transform your culture, we need diverse perspectives. And so I think that's really the whole point of this series, is that for us to get to the next 10 years and create solutions like you did with your son's story, we have to have the right mix of people at the table. And I want to walk away from this. You gave a lot of advice. If a partner is listening, they can contain probably 3 things in their brain that they can go back to their organizations. What do you think that they would be to start moving in this direction of a more inclusive workforce?
I would say first, define what you're really passionate about in your business model. What are the big, bold ambitions that you want to achieve? Second, look at your talent and think about how you can diversify that and build a culture that's going to help you get there. Satya is a great example of how he's done that at Microsoft, but there are countless examples of how to do that. And then third, I would say be consistent and follow through. Employees recognize when there's change, and if they believe in the change, they will see it through with you, but you need to be a leader and stand up for what that change is and be convicted on it. So really, I would say at the end of it, make sure you invest in your people. People are the key to any growth. You cannot do this solely through technology, and make sure that you really invest in your people.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. We'll have in the show notes links to some great playbooks where we you talk about hiring the right kind of talent actually in some of these playbooks. So we appreciate you being in the studio. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Include. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think. And please join the conversation on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter at MS Partner.